just keep doing things that are exciting to you, enticing. You're going to go through these ups and downs of not knowing what that thing is.
You know what they say, if you don't feel it, you shouldn't do it. You definitely got to trust your intuition, but I still believe you have to see things through.
If there's something that I feel like I'm getting called to do, I've learned that you just got to listen to that stuff.
The mind's the only one that can speak back to you in a language you understand. The heart and the gut are like a feeling, whereas the mind, you're actually having a legit conversation back and forth, logic, this, that, A, B.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking part in this immersive listening experience. A meaningful existence is a moving target that, no matter how close, will always be out of reach. We hope this message finds you with an outstretched hand. As we attempt to uncover complex truths, remember, life's toughest questions can be answered if we all just focus on one thing: being good people.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good People, episode 61. My guest today is Jack Crowe. He is a runner, a boxer, a boxing coach, and an all-around great human being. In this episode, expect to learn all of the things that Jack has been involved with over the last year, stories from some of the fights and runs that he's been a part of, and most recently, stepping away from the gym that he helped create. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Jack Crowe, ladies and gentlemen. How you been, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Been pretty busy, been having a lot of changes, a lot going on, but yeah, I can't complain. You know, it's nice out. It's summertime. It's a good time to be alive.
Yeah, right on, dude. It's been, I don't know, I didn't know this until after we had scheduled this, but it's been literally 1 year since you've been on the show. So you were episode 9 and this is 61, so it's 52 episodes.
Dude, you have been hustling with these, man. I love seeing these all come out. It's one of the coolest things and something I admire about you. Your consistency to what you're doing is incredibly admirable. So good on you, man. I love seeing it, and I love the variety of people you've been attracting onto this show, and super stoked for you. By the way, just gotta start off with that.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much for that. It's funny, like we're always our own worst critic. Like I do beat myself up a lot about, you know, whether it's the consistency of it. Somebody actually gave me that compliment the other day who I had on maybe 2 months ago. He had messaged me on Instagram and he was like, super impressive that you're able to keep up with one of these a week. And it's something that I kind of beat myself up for. I'm like, man, maybe I could do 2. And then I'm like, no, I don't know if I could keep up with that. And yeah, it's definitely a lot to keep up, but you know, just like everything else, as long as you sort of stay ahead of schedule and you keep some episodes in the bank, it's easy to you know, like for example, this episode that we're recording is by way of a couple of cancellations. And if I hadn't had like two or three weeks in advance, then I would have fallen off. Right. But luckily we were able to keep up with it, even if something does fall through.
Hell yeah. No, it's like every time I listen to another podcast, like one of the things like that always comes up is like, you know, if you get past episode 2, you're in the nth percentile, like the higher range. And I'm like, well, I only know one guy who runs his own podcast, and that's you. And you're on, what would you say, episode 60?
62.
62. So, man, you're up there, and it's just awesome to know you. And yeah, man, I'm down to make this a yearly thing. I'll report back next June, and we'll see where I'm at then.
Right on. We'll do it. Actually, I lied. It's 61. Sorry, it's 61.
That's all good.
Yeah, but that's funny you bring that statistic up. We cited that a lot when we started. It was like, you know, I think it's episode 7 or something, and you're in the top 10%, and then only 10% of those people make it past 21. So like if you make 21 podcast episodes, you're literally in the top 1% of podcasts of all time in regards to that metric. And, you know, we were shooting for that for a while. And so to be, you know, a year plus into this thing, I feel like I've kind of conquered the podcast. You know, like that sounds silly. Obviously, like there's so much room for me to improve, especially as an orator. I beat myself up a lot about stuff that I say and do, but it's unique, right? Like if I talk to anybody in real life, they would be like, dude, you are so precise with your word. You speak so well. And it's just because the thing is talking, and, you know, it's more than just a conversation, right? Like you and I are going to have this conversation, but also I am thinking about the viewer listening to this conversation, and I'm thinking about, okay, I have to drive it forward in a certain way and have a certain direction, and we can't sort of bounce all over the place. And maybe I could have used a different word there instead because that wasn't as precise as I wanted it to be. And so I'll listen back and comb over it like that. But I think if any regular person listens to the show, they would say that, he speaks pretty well. The lighting's cool. The set looks fine. And, so yeah, I think that's just like worth saying, is that usually, especially if you're a high achiever or you want to do anything consistently, you're probably going to be your highest critic. And it's good to sort of be able to accept the compliments that people have for you. And it definitely helps you in terms of continuing to do it and continuing to go forward with it.
Yeah, well, it's that, and also just like what your purpose is behind this. It's to, talk to good people. It's to learn more. It's to, ask questions in a really fun, live setting like this. It's, trying to get to know things and bring cool ideas and, stories along to your audience. Like, so it's just kind of a testament to what you do, and you get better by doing it. There's no, you can only practice so much, but the actual act of getting up here, hitting record, and just going to work is the big differentiator. So, man, it's just a sign of who you are and what you've been doing. So I love it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, we talked about that a lot last time. There was a big theme of like, the point of life is to create stories. It's to, look back and be able to tell these awesome stories. A lot of stuff can happen in a year, like you mentioned earlier. So tell me some of the stuff, that's been going on in your life since the last time we talked.
Yes. So yeah, a year to this day, you and I were sitting down on an afternoon just like this, on a Friday, and I was getting ready to go have a fight. What was it? It was my fifth fight, I believe, fourth or fifth, something like that. So that night I went out and won by technical knockout, and it was one of those um, storybook feelings. You feel every bit of emotion from start to finish, good to bad, and then you go out there and do what you do at the highest level that you can, and you perform the way you do, and it was awesome. So as far as stories go, I mean, obviously the big ones are, I kind of take every athletic competition as a story. The build up, uh, the event itself, kind of the posthumous of it. So since we've talked, I had that fight. I went on and ran a half marathon in Chicago with a bunch of friends, and just kind of being like the first major race that I did in my city kind of felt pretty special to me, because up until then my past two races have been in New York. And I mean, I say race, I'm racing myself obviously, but it's still, the process of getting there, the process of going through it, the highs, the lows, all that. So I did that half marathon, um, came back in the winter, and we hosted our first ever fight night, so our first ever event. And I got to fight on that card and lost a really close split decision, but it was just super cool to be a part of putting an event together, and working those logistics, dealing with tickets, dealing with putting together fights, and like kind of just the whole show, as well as actually competing in the damn thing, which is great. Followed up that with another race here in the city, just a little 8K, but it's a really popular one. The Shamrock Shuffle in Chicago pulls together like tens of thousands of people, which I had no idea it was that big till I did the damn thing. And this is my first time working with a run coach, which just kind of added a new process to what I was doing. Learning from someone else, kind of taking a plan that's more copy and paste than be here, seeing it under the guidance of like a boxing coach that I'm used to. It's, here's a plan, here's this, follow it to a T, see how you do. And I beat my own expectations with that race, which was great. It was a good one too. After that, I went and did another race down in Charleston, a 10K, and it was a beautiful race, but we got there late. So I spent the first 2 miles, and this is another one that has, tens of thousands of people. So we're late. It's been off for 20 minutes, and I'm spending 2 miles dodging through people, just kind of, there's people walking at this point. So it's one of those lessons of learning to find the good in not, perfect situations, not ideal situations. It's like I always want to have the best chance to go as fast as I can and do as good as I can. But when you show up late and you get penalized for it. So I spent 2 miles just kind of playing dodgeball with people, and then got to let loose for a little bit at the end. But that was a good one, and that was a fun one because I got to spend it with family. So a first like shared racing experience, which was really nice. And then followed that up with the most recent. Had a fight back here in May, our third show, uh, and lost a split decision there. But again, just the process of going through the camp, putting on the event, and going from there. So there was a lot to that too. Um, but other than that, it's been just micro stories of spending time with my friends, family. Been living with my girlfriend for over just about a year now, so that's been an awesome experience and something we've had a lot of good times. Just kind of learning to live with each other and share that experience, which is super awesome. Um, so yeah, those are like, I mean, I just rambled through a whole bunch of sporting events and life updates, but that's just kind of been what's been happening.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting. Like, I don't know how other people feel about this, but I guess just growing up and existing in society, I heard from a lot of people, like, I don't know. I just was always under this assumption that once you graduated college or you kind of got your job, things just sort of became redundant. And that's just not been my experience. And maybe it slows down a bit once you have like kids and a family. I'm sure you do a little bit of that intentionally. But dude, I can't, I've done so much shit in the last year since we talked, much less like even before that. Like I just feel like I'm constantly, every month there's something that's like major happening in my life. And maybe it's just by way of being a young man in the world. But yeah, I think it's cool to reflect and think about all that stuff. Like a lot of people go through a whole year and they're like, wow, I'm already been here. But when you look back and you think like, dude, you ran like 4 races, you've done 2 fights, you spent, like you said, time with your friends and family. You've done so much stuff in a year. And I think sometimes when we look backwards on life, it's a lot easier to see it in hindsight as being longer than when you're actually going through it. It's easy to be like, man, time is flying, but it's not really, man. If you're doing stuff and you're always engaging and learning in new things, when you look back, it things just happen at the right time.
Yeah, and I've been seeing all these things lately. It's like so and so is 20 years old, like this song or this movie or this album, something that like I remember as a kid. Like I see that and I like immediately like put back into 2004. So like you get that feeling, you're like, oh shit, like it's been 20 years since this came out, and then you think about what all has happened in 20 years, and I think the more you kind of you say. You're talking about how things always seem to come up and nothing's really slowing down since college, graduating college, and everything's been going on. I think that's kind of a result of living intentionally, something that obviously you do. I try to do myself. So when you do that, you are more in the as cliche as it all sounds, you're more in the present. So those memories kind of stick around a little harder and they have more emphasis and like more weight to the time that they however long ago they were, there's still that weight there that doesn't really feel like, oh my God, you don't focus on the time that's elapsed. You focus on that moment because you're doing it intentionally. You're dealing with the change. You're doing all sorts of different things. So I think that's a critical part of that, in my opinion.
Yeah. From an outside perspective, I know it's not like you and I connect and where we talk on a regular basis, but just like from an outside perspective, it seems like you've done an intentional job of taking a step back from a lot of things recently in your life. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm just curious, like what exactly is involved with that? It seems like you've done a couple fights. You're running definitely a lot more. It seems at least participating in races. What would you say like your focuses are right now?
Uh, so I mean, I know we talked about this a little bit, but I recently parted ways with my gym that I was opening with. Just some uh, fundamental disagreements and just time to move on from that. But again, I'm not gonna try to dwell on how it all ended. I'm gonna think more about the fact that I put in the work to build this place to help get it on its feet, and all the people and places I've been through with it, and just all the great times with it. And that's kind of was the easy kind of method of like how I'm splitting my time up. You know, it was, you know, working on the gym, and then in my free time moments, I would try to, you know, dial in for a race, you know, go through this. So it was mixing between those two. It was really easy to kind of just ping pong back and forth. But now that that's gone, I mean, obviously I've got Chicago Marathon coming up here in the fall, so now is the time to get started on that, because that's going to be another whole new experience, something I'm really excited to do. But it's gonna be more it's gonna be more focused on what I need at that time, I guess. Something that, you know, I learned through the gym process is uh, you have to really be sure it's something that is gonna work for you for the long haul. And you know, certain characteristics of what went into this one, I didn't really take the foresight into it. And I know it's all vague, but it's all pretty fresh, so I don't really want to go too deep in. But I think more just about what feels right at the time is kind of how I'm gonna go from here. I'm not gonna try to dig in too deep because, you know, this was a, you know, I've been partnered up this way for about 3 years, like even before the gym. And that's been, you know, just something that couldn't leave my side. And I spent a whole lot of time and away from people and under stress and doing all this. So it's going to be things that, again, I can create more stories versus I can, you know, commit to something that's going to absolutely, you know, requires my undivided attention. And that's what this did. And I just have divided attention, and that's, you know, a fault of my own. I'll take as much responsibility for what happened as I can. But yeah, it's just more about living life, trying new things, doing things that make me feel good, that, you know, keep me healthy, that still challenge and stimulate me. So it's going to be a lot of new things, and I don't know what that is, but looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, first of all. And I think, you know, I talked about this on a recent episode with my buddy Ethan, and he said he shared something on Instagram the other day that was posted by Gary Vaynerchuk, and it was a post that said, "You're not lost, you're just early." And I think this is important to talk about. And we talked about our distaste for hustle culture last time you were on here. And it's the hustle culture mindset is like, who cares? You'll have another opportunity with something else. You don't even know what it is yet. And like, that's likely true, man. Like you might fall into like collecting World War II memorabilia or some shit. And like you buy and trade that, and that's your thing. Right. And it like totally left field from what you're doing right now. And that's cool. Right. But I've kind of been going through something similar where it's just like, I never really thought about the cost. There's a cost to growth. Okay. And the cost is that you are a different person after you grow. And that person might want something different than the previous version of you wanted. And like, that's kind of a weird thing, because it's like, okay, if I'm focused on growth, it would be silly of me to assume that the things that I'm shooting for now are going to be what I want after that I'm done growing. Or, you know, and there's a lot that goes into that, right? Sometimes circumstance or whatever can change it, and it's not necessarily what you want specifically, but for the most part, like, that's true, right? In order to grow, you have to become something new. And that new thing, like, the reality of growth is that it's not like you're going to grow and then you're going to arrive. It's that you're going to grow and then there's going to be a new thing that you want to try to work at. And so this sort of state of desire or ambition or purpose, whatever you want to call it, I think it's important to notice that this is probably going to be a concurrent feeling that you have throughout your life. And I think when I made that recognition, it was really stressful for me, because it was like, I'm going to live my whole life not necessarily not being satisfied, but kind of hungry for this thing. And I think at some level that's true. And after you sort of accept that and play around with it and acknowledge it, it becomes a lot easier to think about and actually go through, because it's the cliche of, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But like, the point of the thing isn't the thing you get, it's the thing. And so just keep doing things that are exciting to you, enticing. You're going to go through these ups and downs of not knowing what that thing is, but you'll eventually find it again. You'll sort of go through this journey and process. You'll have a great story to tell. And then, you know, if you move on to something new, it's totally okay. It kind of sounds like you've been thinking about the same ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, to put it in fight terms, I guess, you know what they say, if you don't feel it, you shouldn't do it. Dana White always says, if you're thinking about retirement, you should, and not that, fully retired, but it came to a point where I've felt myself 100% locked in, ready to go, ready for a fight. Nothing else matters, and I can recognize that feeling because I've done this. Was this my sixth fight, my last one, and that last one I didn't feel that, and it's a point where it's not it's you definitely got to trust your intuition, but I still believe you have to see things through. So even though I didn't feel 100% committed to this past fight camp and everything that came along with that, I still had to see it through because I don't want to be that guy that just bails and cancels on everything. I so and I know it's kind of ironic now, but what I mean is, like, if you don't feel it, I don't think, I mean, you have to be honest with it, but again, you have to accept the consequences of what that's going to be. Um, that might be, you might never be able to get back to, the top of your game as far as that was. But I think if you're not, 100% committed, you should, you shouldn't try to force it because it's really dangerous to try to force it in certain games and can cost more than, what you might lose switching gears.
I have a newsletter that I kind of started recently. I release it weekly, and I just
Ooh, you're gonna have to send that my way.
cool. It's on Substack. It's yeah, I'll send it to you.
Sweet.
But it basically is just like, I've been writing since college, and it's just like a little personal journal thing. It's a really crazy amalgamation of a bunch of different types of stuff. But the one that came out most recently this week, I titled it The Three Voices: the Heart, the Mind, and the Gut. And I first heard this idea from a guy named Tu Lam, who is him and his parents immigrated from Vietnam when he was very little. And he obviously got a citizenship, and he became a Green Beret in the Army. And he's older now. I think he's in his 40s or 50s. He trains cops, and he's very invested in samurai culture. Like Musashi is his shit too, like you and I. And on podcasts and stuff that he was talking, I can't remember exactly how he was talking about it, but he pretty much just made a simple claim. Like, there are three voices that we all have inside our head: the heart, the mind, and the gut. And that was it. And he had his point. And I'd like pause the podcast, and I wrote that down. And then I later expanded upon it. And basically, upon writing about it, I've sort of come to the conclusion that we're living in a world where we are too focused on what the mind is telling us. And of the three voices rather, the mind is the only one that you should distrust. Like, you have to second guess the mind because it's logical, because it says like why would we quit this thing? This is giving us financial security. Why would we stop? For example, say you're like working out at a gym and you just have this gut feeling that's like, these people aren't really serving for me, but this has really been the only place that I've been able to consistently get in shape. It's like your mind says, well, don't quit. Like, this is the only place that you've been able to successfully get in shape, right? And the heart and the gut, when they talk to us, I think everybody intrinsically can decipher the difference between those three things. I know I can. And the heart and the gut are never wrong, never wrong. And you should just listen to it first. If your heart says something, your gut says something, all right, we're doing it. And if your mind says something, you should really, think about it. And I think a lot of times people, what they do is their gut or their heart is telling them to move on or move to a different thing, whatever that may be. And then their mind convinces them to stay. It's like, no, there's safety here. There's a blanket here. We're comfortable here. We can do all these other things here. But I'm on the same wavelength with you, man. Like, I simply cannot ignore, especially my gut, man. Like, I just know, like, I can't do this anymore. I've got to do that. And if there's something that I feel like I'm getting called to do, whether it's my heart or my gut, it's like, I've learned that you just got to listen to that stuff.
Yeah, and not only that, the mind's the only one that can speak back to you in a language you understand, right? It's like the heart and the gut are like a feeling, whereas the mind, you're actually having a legit conversation back and forth, logic, this, that, A, B. So it speaks to you at a deeper level. I got a book for you to read. It's an old one. It's The Power of Mythology by Joseph Campbell. And it's basically just a conversation between a journalist and this guy who just was a professor, wrote a lot about the philosophy of mythology and where it comes from and how it's kind of similar across cultures, and it just kind of speaks to some of these deeper level feelings that you and I are talking about here, and where you have to kind of put your trust into them. Because I mean, if you look back to any decision you've made with your gut and your heart, you can look and probably tell yourself that you made the right choice. You always feel that kind of sense of satisfaction. Whereas the mind, it's you can feel that satisfaction. You might make the logical choice, but you make so many of those on a day-to-day basis, small, large, and I feel like the brain can't really, delineate between the two. It's where, the bigger choices, head down south and you start, really testing the waters with it. So I think they all just speak at different frequencies, not to be too hippie-ish, but you can get a lot from each one if you use them correctly.
Dude, my entire life and well-being is because of gut feelings. I ran 100
Yep.
miles because it was a gut feeling, or that was actually like heart. Like I just felt it. This was cool. I wanted to do it. When I was training for my first 50 miler, I had literally never stepped foot into a CrossFit gym, never once in my life. I just watched CrossFit videos on YouTube, and I did a couple of them every once in a while at the gym on my own. I was the weird guy doing burpees in the corner while everybody was doing bodybuilding workouts, because I liked the training style. And I had decided like a month before my 50 miler, it was in November of 2019. And I signed up for my CrossFit level 1 in December of 2019. And I drove myself at 18 years old to Philadelphia, and I took this course. And I literally, the first time I was in a CrossFit gym was when I was getting certified to become a coach, because it was just like this gut thing of like, when I get back to college, I'm going to reach out and intern at CrossFit gyms and in my college town, and I'm going to like do this thing. And when I was in there, I was like, I'm studying communications in college. I don't really give a shit about this stuff. I like coaching people in their fitness. And then I turned that into my now career. The podcast was a gut feeling. Like all the shit that I care about is just, it was a gut feeling and I did it. Right. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom, like you were saying. I'll definitely check that book out. I wrote it down. There's a lot of wisdom in listening to those voices that we have.
Right. And that's also a thing where it's telling stories. No one's ever told a great story. It's like, well, I thought about what could happen. I thought about what couldn't happen. It's like, no, I felt this thing and I went after it. Like every story dismisses logic to a certain degree, to make it, the most impactful, the most entertaining. So I think it's all connected. It's all the same. But no, that's awesome that you kind of went out and did your own thing based on that feeling. That's a another rare thing to people can say. Not a lot of people do that for such big decisions like that either. So man, more kudos to you.
Yeah, and that advice you gave on the show, I don't know if I've thought about it consciously. I mean, I definitely actually have been thinking about it consciously for a couple of weeks now. And I actually heard Alex Hormozy say this too. But like the advice you gave on the last show was like, tell good stories, man. Like that's it. And that's actually something that I weigh decisions with now. Like if I'm gonna make a thing, it's like, man, I'm gonna have a lot of good stories to tell out of this, right? And like obviously, there's a lot that goes into that. There's more, especially as you have relationships and people that things are affecting, right? But telling good stories is the thing. And like I not that's pretty much my focus for myself, not only like to do things that are good stories, but like be able to tell the stories better. Like that's what I care about. Like all the men that I admire have done cool shit and they tell good stories, and that's what I want to do. And so like if you just keep doing that over and over and over again, I think by the end of your life, hopefully we'll find out, right? By the end of your life, you've done okay, right?
Yeah, it's like if you're lying on your deathbed and someone asks you, tell us a story, and you can't come to any, that's a life not well lived. And that's I think that's what the big fight back against. And this is like veering off topic, but the the whole fight against all this AI tech and everything, and all of these things making life more convenient, making things easier, like kind of is, based on that feeling. Like no one tells a good story that they, went through their phone and did X, Y, and Z. It's like there's no good story about you ordering Uber Eats. There's a good story about you and your friends biking 2 miles, through your neighborhood, like running, getting away from cops, doing all this stuff just to get a cheeseburger. But there's not, so I think that's just going to be, more of a push for a lot of people, is creating these stories that they've only heard about from their fathers, their grandfathers, and so on and so forth. It's I have a feeling like that's kind of going to be a pushback, which I hope is the case, because that's what makes life interesting. All the stories that you can tell.
Yeah. What's cool for me, especially in this role, is I'm speaking to a lot of doctors and researchers and professors on a lot of these topics. And I just recently, the episode that came out today and last week, while you and I are talking, was on adolescent development. I've spoke to somebody specifically about how social media and technology influences adolescent development. And then I talked to somebody else more broadly on adolescent development and sort of, how the various attributes that contribute to developing into an adult, emerging in adulthood and being successful. And the basic takeaway from that for the first one, specifically with media use, is that it's important that parents teach their kids how to use it as a tool, right? Like, if we obviously get addicted to these things, just like any other sort of addictive substance or quality, it's going to be problematic, right? But it's a tool, and you can actually use it for really positive things too. And then the interesting thing about the more specific, or the more general lady rather, is that one of the most significant characteristics to making sure that you turn out to be an okay adult is ensuring that your children are in good socioeconomic status, obviously. And a big part of that is education, and not necessarily education in the formal sense, but it's just like, going to college would be an example of that, going into the military, going to some sort of vocational school. But basically her whole point was like, you just have to encourage your kids to do stuff. And I think that we're living in an age, and even like my friends who are my age and they are adults and they pay bills, it's like everybody that I know is just so scared to do stuff. Like, even the people that I work out in the gym with, obviously it's great. Like, they're crushing life. They're moms and dads. They've got kids. They're raising their kids. They're in the gym a couple times a week. Like, they're doing great. But like, I'll tell somebody that I'm running 100 miles or I did that, and they're like, holy shit, dude, that's crazy. And granted, like, it is crazy, but I think more people, I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that they're capable of similar feats. And it might not have to be running 100 miles, but that caliber of thing in whatever field it is that you want to study or do or learn is possible. And whether it's becoming well-read or making a cool collection of art or growing your business or running 100 miles, like, everybody is capable of doing really high caliber things. It's as long as you just like keep showing up and you actually do things, because that's the most important part. And people are too scared, I think, sometimes to take steps or take action on it.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that always, came up for new people wanting to learn how to box is, oh, I'm gonna look like an idiot. Oh, I don't know what it's gonna be like, but I've always wanted to. It's like, you already believe that it's something you want to do. You already know that, you're gonna look like an idiot. Everyone's gonna look like an idiot whenever they start anything. If you saw how I boxed when I first started, you'd laugh your ass off. If you tried to watch me run a mile before I ran, half marathons, you'd laugh your ass off. And that's a maybe, even, because a lot of people start off a lot worse, but they start. And that's probably the biggest thing that, is part of the whole discussion we're having about, trusting your gut, trusting your heart, uh, doing new things. It's just starting them. I think that's like the big differentiator between a lot of people. It's, again, they talk to their head too much. They have that conversation and they talk themselves out of it, because it's easier to understand than what you feel here and here, So I think that's a good part of it too.
Yeah. And on that note, it's like, if you are scared to start boxing because you're afraid of how you'll look and you want to start boxing, by being afraid of boxing, you are not accomplishing the thing that you want to accomplish in the first place. So like, if you don't look like an idiot, you will not become a boxer, and you will not become proficient. If you don't want to run like an idiot, you will not become a good runner. Like, that is a part of the thing. And to your point, like, I self-identify as like a very incapable person. And I think if I said that to anybody, they would be like, dude, you're out of your mind. Like, look at all the stuff that you've done. And by no means have I ever started anything, even this podcast. Like, I would say that this podcast is probably up there with one of the things that I have more natural talent for. But when I started it, I was like, man, I suck at this thing. Like, I have to, if you go back and listen to the first episode, I have one AirPod in one ear and I'm holding the other one in the other ear because I'm hearing my feedback of my audio, and I couldn't listen to myself talk in my own ear, and I'm saying every time that the guy's talking, and like it's just so bad, especially what I know now. And I guarantee you I'm going to look back on this episode in a year, 2 years, 3 years and be like, I should have tightened that up. I should have tightened that up. And it will be obvious to me.
But yeah, but look what you just did. Look what you just did there, though. You just told the story. So just by starting, you're creating the stories that we're talking about, being a good part of living life. It's a good life is the story of how you started and fell on your ass and got back up and tried again, fell on your ass, got back up, kept going and going and going until you didn't fall. So it's again just starting the story is just as good as having one.
Exactly. And to that point again, if you start something and you fail, you'll laugh about it later. Like that's it. Like, dude, remember when we took that boxing? I took my buddy in college. He was my roommate. He was randomly assigned. He turned out to be like this awesome guy. His name was Tanner. And Tanner was super into meditation. We talked a lot about spirituality and mindfulness. It was awesome. And we took these like meditative yoga classes, and we'd show up and there would be like 25 girls deep and just me and Tanner like doing cobra stretch and the downward dog, and we'd leave, and like we didn't go back to them. And that's a funny story, right? Like it wasn't something that stuck, but we look back on that and we were like, dude, that was hilarious. Like we should try to do something like that again.
hmm And I think people should look at that, be like, if the worst case scenario doesn't make you laugh a little bit, then what's the harm in doing it?
Yeah, exactly. Something that I've talked to a lot of people on the show about this. It's something that fascinates me, and you're kind of involved with it as well. Is this like creator culture? I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on that. Like, what's your opinion on the current state of creator culture, influencers, that shit?
I think I think the ones who are doing it the best are telling stories. Surprise. Um, I I go back and forth. There's, even for a brief period, I actually hired a business coach when I wanted to get into coaching, running, specifically coaching right for boxing. And I thought, it'd be more of like a process where I learned how to coach that sort of thing, how to communicate online, how to set up your, taxes, LLC, all that jazz. I thought it'd be like all of that for this specific thing. And what it turned out was it was more of a building content and how to do it. So it's funny because like there are paths and guides and certain things you can do to really use it to build a business, to grow, your own thing, to, make some money, to, impact some people. There's ways to do that. And I did it for a while, and it worked. Like, I mean, I got a video with, over damn near 200,000 views. And I know that sounds superficial and all that, but like for what I was doing, and like, it just was following again that consistency thing, and consistency works. Like, there's no doubt about it. But again, it comes down to, is this how you want to live your life? Is this something that, is really driving you? And it was more of, the process of creating content, what kind of content, when to drop it, what to use, how to set up your video, how to do this. And it was all really great stuff to learn and understand. But after a while of doing it, I just, kind of got fed up with the process. And you can call that a failure, I can call it a pivot, whatever. But unless you're telling a story, or unless I'm, sharing an insight or a thought behind, you know, an event or something that happens or something I've been thinking of, find it really hard to just post stuff for likes, views, and possible dollars. And that's just me. There's people who, make a living off it, and I commend them because I burnt out really fucking fast from doing that. But then at the same time, uh, my my girlfriend uses TikTok a lot to find recipes or to learn how to do stuff, and it's kind of becoming I look at it that way, as like it's the new Google search. And when people are creating content, it's more of it actually almost feels better that, I'm seeing a person who took the time to teach me how to fix my toilet or how to make this sandwich or whatever the hell. And it kind of does feel nice, like it's a community of, effort of sharing this insight, sharing these instructions, sharing this how to, which is cool. But as far as what I like to do, I like to tell a story behind it. I like to drive some insight. I like to, you know, I like more to it than just here's 5 ways to do this. And I've done those videos and it cringed all the way through. Um, but that's just me. So it depends what your aim is. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's something I'd ever return to. Maybe I would, but for now, yeah, I'm just kind of not about it myself.
It sounds to me like you should start a podcast.
You start a podcast how-to class. I'll take that, and then I will start a podcast.
That's actually interesting, dude. I've probably like 25 or 26 episodes in, me and Cayman were like, dude, let's like make a course. We can start like making some dollars off this thing. And like, that's cool. But to your point, the reason I do a podcast is the only thing that I could do online. It's the only thing that I can do online, at least right now. Right. And the only reason I can do a podcast is because somebody does all the post-production for me, because I've done a podcast in college and I just couldn't handle that stuff, dude. And that might sound like soft and whatever, but it's true. Like, what do I like to do? I like looking. I'm looking at a camera right now. I'm not looking at you, but I like kind of looking at you and having a conversation about things that are cool to me, or like things that are going on, or lessons learned. And this is the way to do that. And there's so much nuance to ideas. Like, I could have 1,000 episodes and I won't even have scratched the surface of what it means to be a human being, to be a good person, to live a good life, what philosophy is, what my place in this world is, where is America in this thing, all these things, right? There's so many layers to being a human, being in a community, being in even lower than that, being in a family, being in a community, being in a society and a civilization, right? Like, and these are all things that we think about. And so I guess my point is that those ideas are the ideas that interest me. And this is like one of the only forums that I feel like you can talk about that. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because when I'm talking about this like creator culture, right? You talk about telling stories, that is the idea that a lot of the people that I've talked to have said, where they feel like we're in this bubble of content creation that's about to pop. And the people who are going to be left are going to be the people who tell stories, right? And I don't know how I feel about that. That kind of sounds like some grandiose bullshit a little bit to me, but I think to some degree that's true, right? And like the influencer is different than the content creator or whatever you want to say, right? But something that I have a hard time with is because the people who are influencers are getting so much attention, and there's so many strategies to like getting the clicks and garnering the views, is that the conversations like this, which I'd like to believe are important and can actually contribute to the cause, whatever that is, the virality on them is very low, and it's hard to grow this thing. And it does suck when it's like, yeah, you have a podcast that pops off on YouTube and gets like 1,000 views, and then the next 4 get like 20, right? And the ups and downs are kind of hard to gauge. And people keep telling me if you just keep going for years and years and years, it'll pay off. And it's like, that might not be true. I don't know, and you don't ever know until you sort of go through it. And so it definitely is hard. And it kind of sucks that the stuff that you and I are engaged with or want to involve ourselves with are the garner less attention. I don't even know how I feel about that, because even saying that too, it's like, maybe it's not even the point. Like, if I like doing this, then I should just do it no matter how many people are watching. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be hard seeing, people do less and uh, you know, succeed more in some instances. But again, that just boils back to, why are you doing it? And if it really is, I really want to just have cool conversations. I really want to share ideas. You can do as much as you can to boost that out to the world. But sometimes, it is just an instance of, okay, here's something I love doing. Maybe people will pick up, but I'm still having a good time doing it. I'm talking to some great people. I'm listening to some great stories, telling some great stories. This is something I'll be able to look back on and either, laugh about or, share some insight, share, good lessons with your family, friends. Like it really does boil down to the foundation of why am I doing this, um, and what do I what do I think it can achieve, and that's what endurance is all about. It's it's believing in what it can achieve, not what will it like what it is achieving at the moment. It's about the possibility of it. And again, it's gonna be a great story down the line. That time I talked to 500 people for an hour. How many people can say I talked to how many different people have you talked to? Like probably am I the first repeat?
No, I've had a couple repeats. I've probably talked
All
to
right.
like 50 to 55 unique people.
How many people can look someone in the face and be like, I've had a conversation with 50 different people, 50 first conversations, real conversations, not you're meeting someone at, at a bar and trying to hear what'd you say? What's your major? Like that shit. Like you're having real conversations and this is your way to do it. And oh, on the side, I might, put this in the hands of someone who really needs it, or I might really catch fire and spread an idea. But at the end of the day, man, you're doing the most human thing possible. That's interacting with other people, and that's really rare these days, which is scary. But this is how you fight back. You have these conversations. You inspire people to talk better, to do something different, to go make a story, all that. So it's again, why are you doing it?
Mm. I think that idea, kind of what I was talking about earlier, where my goal is to like tell better stories, be a better communicator. It's so cool to see that pay dividends, like in my real life as a coach, or even if I do go out to a bar and get drinks with people, being able to just articulate an idea. Like I've actually made this connection very recently, probably more recently than like it's kind of embarrassing how I didn't realize this sooner. But talking to people in this way and just being more actively engaged in the way that I'm speaking, I now look for this in every conversation that I have. When I'm directing somebody on how they should exercise at the gym, or if I'm out getting ice cream with friends, or whatever we're doing, I'm like, okay, how can I speak better here? Like when I first started, it was just about the podcast, and then I was like, actually, I could just practice this all the time, and then it became like the thing, right? And so now this doesn't feel as unique. I mean, obviously, it's still a unique thing, and it's cool that we get to share this, but because I probably would never have met otherwise if this wasn't a thing, right? And it but you don't have to have like a podcast to practice talking. If you want to get better at talking, sit on your couch, turn on your recorder, and just like talk into it, and then listen back and try to get better at it. And the next question too that I want to ask you that kind of ties in with all this is like, do you think it's important for regular people to try to be developing a personal brand?
I think so, but not in the way that everyone thinks of it. So I don't think a personal brand is limited to uh, physical or online, video. It's not just, how you're presented online. I think a personal brand should be more of like what people think of you. When someone says your name, when they say Joel Sherman, what does everyone in a room, what would they say? And I think that can, that's kind of a cop out of what you're saying, but I think it's important because that kind of stuff transfers over to what you do online. So if you want to develop a personal brand online, you should first focus on what it is in your individual, communities, in your individual groups. I think it's important for people to have um, certain, perspectives on you. Granted, they should all be as, good and positive as they can, but sometimes, there's value of being the wild card of the crew, the one who will do, anything, because that can set you up for a personal brand of making jackass videos. I don't know. But I think a personal brand is less about, who you present yourself online as, what your font is, what your shtick is. It's more about, how do you respond to things that happen to you? How do people view you? How can you use your best attributes and best characteristics and share that in whatever in with whichever way you're trying to market yourself online or, in business, what have it be. So I think it's a deeper question. You should have a personal brand that you should be, constantly not, nitpicking, but in the back of your head, it's like, okay, I want to be the guy who's super consistent with how he trains because that's how I'm going to, inspire my friends. That's how I'm going to inspire my community, my people. Or I want to be the guy that's always going to, be there when someone's down. I'm going to be the guy who always shows up. I'm going to be the guy who's at every one of his kids' baseball games. I'm going to be the guy who, never misses a session, who, gives the tough advice no one wants to because they think they're going to look bad. So I think it's deeper than just what the online personal brand is per se.
Yeah, I think it's like reputation or character, right? It's like the combination of those two things maybe is what you're talking about, where
Yeah.
obviously your character is important. Like, are you hardworking? Are you disciplined? Do you show up? But also within your community, like, I'm laughing because there's this lady who I have beef with locally a little bit
Yes.
in the fitness community. And it's like, I don't even know how that happened. I don't know. I don't even want to get into it, but it's, yeah, like there's that like that reputation that's important to garner and to establish and to make sure that when people say your name or think about you, they think about it fondly. I spoke with Ryan Renteria. He's got an Instagram account. It's got like maybe 100,000 followers. He's got a bunch of American traditional tattoos, lives in California with his family, posts a lot of these cool pictures with his family and of his tattoos, and he works out and like just a regular guy. He used to work at Apple and now he's in school studying chemistry, I think. And he just made the comment, like, I think everybody should have a personal brand because he thinks one day the job market is going to be such that, you get hired to do a little bit of consulting work over here, and then you get hired to do a little photography over here. And then, you do a brand deal on your Instagram account. Right. And I don't know if I buy that. Like, I think we are living in an age where that's possible. And there's a certain kind of individual and lifestyle that can do that and can make pretty good money. It's sort of just like having a lot of part-time jobs. Like, that's basically what you're doing. But I don't know, like my grandpa, for example, he's never had a cell phone ever in his whole life. Like, if you want to call him, you better hope he's home and you call the landline. And granted, I know he's coming from a different generation. He never had one. And so it was easy for him not to get one. But I think that there's still an ability to sort of exist and live in this world and just like work a 9 to 5 and have friends in your community and nobody ever knows your name. And you're going to live probably a better and happier existence than these people. Like even you and I are in this category who are like trying to hustle and get this thing that's whatever the arbitrary thing is, get the following, get the likes, get the views. Because while that's not the main focus, like you need those things in order to be able to sustain it over a long period of time.
Yeah. And, that's a really interesting kind of way to look at it. I think part of that is also tied into, our whole conversation about, and I keep going back to it, but making stories. And I think the best way to make stories is to, try different things and, get hobbies, commit to, these competitions, do the certain thing. And I think, while that doesn't need to be a personal brand of like, hey, I'm the, bike mechanic guy because I, bike all the time and I know how to fix a bike in under, 10 minutes, whatever the hell. I think it can, give you good options and, you can be, a better person in terms of you've got all this insight and sharing that with the world can help people, right? You can help people, you can inspire people, you can show people a certain trick, and then you become that go-to person. It's your way to kind of give back and help people the same way you wish you were helped when you were going through this process or you were learning all these things. So it can definitely help, like you said, the virality, and it can become you are the bike mechanic guy and I make 20 grand a month selling PDFs on how to fix bikes, whatever. So I think it's not that everyone needs one, but I think in order to live a good life of, great memories and awesome times, you have to, learn different things and start different, activities and, uh, get into it. So it's a personal brand doesn't have to be just for the hustle bit of it. It can be your way of giving back. Your when I think of you, I think of, podcast legend, Joel Sherman. He's been consistent as hell putting out all these episodes. I look at that and I'm like, okay, his personal brand is he likes having cool conversations. His personal brand is also he's consistent. He's professional. He's, look at all the effort you put into your camera and your lighting, and your audio. Like, you care. And if someone wanted to, hey, how would I start a podcast? You say I should start one. Joel, if I want to start one, you're going to be the first person I talk to. And that's, that's there's value in that for yourself, for other people, because everyone wants to help people. I think one way or the other. I think deep down everyone wants to, lend a hand, give some advice. People feel good about that. So I think having a personal brand about what you do and who you are is, I think, I don't want to say necessary, but man, it makes life a whole lot more interesting.
I get what you're saying, and I don't know where I heard this, but there's just an idea. It's like, help the person that's one step behind you. Like, you don't need to help the beginner. You need to, like, if you're a highly successful person, you will be helping successful people. Like, you will help them get the next step. And I think this kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier, where I was talking about adolescent development, where the guy Drew Single was his name, and he was saying that it's just like media has just become a tool now that it's like Pandora's box. We've opened it. We cannot shut this thing off, and we have to learn how to use it and teach people how to use it productively. And I think that in terms of like personal brand, what you're saying is that it doesn't matter if it's online. Like, you're going to have a thing, whether the medium is online or it's skateboarding in person, and one of the keys to doing it for a lifetime and getting value from it from a lifetime is turning around and helping the guy that's behind you or the gal. And, the podcast, obviously it exists purely online. Like, it has to exist online, but there are things that don't. You can like, for example, if you skateboard, like, you can post videos and you can help people that way, or you can just like help the kid at your local skate park. And so I think that innate thing of like getting fulfillment out of showing somebody else, whether it's online or in person, or, maybe we'll connect our brains via neural link one day. I don't know. It doesn't matter what that modality is, as long as it's happening.
Yeah, dude, funny enough, you mentioned that. I was actually just about to bring up my friend, Will Steffen. He started his own skateboard company, Sapien Skateboard, shout out. But him, me, and two of my other buddies from high school, we used to longboard all the time. And there was this thing going around in our town, but in our grade mostly, where it was us four, there was another group of four people, and then like another group. And we all would make videos of us doing tricks and just try to one up at each other. So we'd make these videos, we'd post them, we'd be like, yeah, we got X amount of views. Yeah, we got this many subscribers. And it was like, this was before social media, YouTube's, all that was like, it was a livelihood. It was before any of that. This was, back in, 2009, 2010, like back in the day. So we would do this at a local level, like just trying to one up them. Meanwhile, out in the West Coast, where there's actually freaking, hills to ride instead of Pancake, Illinois, people are, bombing down hills, and they got these nice DSLR cameras, red cameras, HD shit. Like, they're making these beautiful pieces of art of people skateboarding, doing this. And that's what we looked up to. And, so there was a boom where these companies just made it huge. And we actually ended up sending a video that we made to this deck company. I got a board from them, but we all used it. And we're like, oh man, thank you for this board. It was awesome. If you could subscribe to our channel, that would be sweet. They ended up sponsoring us because at the time what we were doing was cool enough. And they thought, hey, if we put these kids on our boards and they put video and they, make videos, they're going to do the marketing for us. And, they get some free decks, we all win. And we did this for years, and it was the coolest thing ever. And he was the one, my buddy Will, who stuck through it. And he now owns his own skateboard company. He runs like weekly skate events, and he just started up his own like skateboarding class. So like camp type thing, which we've done before, but he's like doing it very legit, and he's giving back to other people. He's, invested in the community. So it's a funny thing with how you can, and he's the skateboarder guy. Everybody knows him as Will the skateboarder. And look what he's done with it. He's started companies. He's helping kids start up. He's, making videos. He's like impacting the skateboard community in Chicago. And it's just something really, it's because of his personal brand, which was just him doing something he loved, skateboarding, and all the different avenues it led. So even back to what you're saying, about the podcast and I love doing it, but sometimes it sucks when it doesn't get as many views. Again, like this podcast might be a launching point for something down the line. It might get you that conversation with that one person who wants to hire you for something, who wants to be a personal coach, whatever. So again, it just comes down to starting something and kind of being authentic with it and trusting your gut with it all at the end.
Yeah. And that makes me think too, like we're not all so lucky to, I would presume that his name's Will.
Yeah.
I would assume that Will loves what he does. I would assume Will loves what he does. And, we're not all so lucky to have found the thing really early. Like I used to pennyboard around my neighborhood. I longboarded for a little while. Like I have had more things that I was going to do for the rest of my life than anybody I know. Like I was going to be a magician and I was going to break the world Rubik's Cube, like this fastest Rubik's Cube time. Like I was going to be a pennyboarder or a longboarder or whatever. Like I wanted to be a martial artist and do jujitsu. I wanted to do CrossFit sort of at some level, right? I wanted to do ultra marathons. I want to have a podcast. I want to, be the most well-read guy. Like I want to be this like jack of all trades. And that's always, sorry, let me take a step back. I've always had things that have popped up and I'm like, this is the thing. But what I've really recognized, especially over the last probably 3 years, is that no. My thing is to be like a generalist. Like I just love doing stuff. And it's okay that I'm never going to achieve the highest level at anything. Like I'm just going to, if I die having done the most things, I'll be happy. And I think that, there's probably more people in the world that are like that than are like Will, who like know what they're going to do and are going to build the skateboard brand. Like there's more people like me where they're just, they can't have that clear focus because they get burnt out, and you need to spread yourself across many different things. And I think there's a lot of value to that because your identity isn't so tied down to the outcome of one thing, right? If you're super into finances and you like helping people with it, and then like your job sucks when you do that. Well, if you like working out and you like skateboarding on the weekends, then you have those things and like it'll carry you for a little while. And so I think to think that spreading yourself thin or spreading yourself to many different interests is a bad thing, like you're never going to make it. It's actually probably one of the most worthwhile things when it comes to maintaining your well-being that you have in your life.
Absolutely. No, dude, you nailed it on the head right there. And I think, that's something I'm gonna, for every time you start something, you think you're gonna do it, to the highest degree and make it, but even if you don't, like I have great stories from when I was, a sponsored longboarder with my friends. Like we would travel, we skate till 2 a.m. Like we did some crazy shit. And those are all stories. I didn't make it and stick through and make a skateboard company, but I don't regret leaving it, because from there I went and started doing this boxing thing, and that was an awesome, great few years. And like I'm gonna continue to do some of these things. I still skateboard now and then. I'm going to keep boxing, but now that kind of I'm not tied down to it. It's back to exploring different things and continuing to live a life of adventure and experience what I can and whatever interests me, and put in enough effort where I get enough out of it. So I think being a generalist, a jack of all trades, again, it gets you a lot more stories. It introduces you to a whole lot more different, unique people, and it's just I think it lives for a great crap my words. It creates a great life. And I also think there's a great life by committing to one thing. There's multiple ways to do it. I don't think there's one. But yeah, that's a great way to put it.
The actual quote of the jack of all trades thing, I think it was Shakespeare. It's a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Like you might not be the highest pinnacle, but like this is fitting for this podcast. Like good people are jacks of all trade. Like you have to have many interests. And I think that you might sacrifice your individual greatness for the good of the many if you have your hands on a lot of different things.
Yeah, and I think if you're on the path to greatness at one thing, you already know it from the beginning. Michael Jordan, didn't, of course, pick up Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan didn't become the greatest at basketball because, he he didn't know from the start this is what my life is going to be. And that's a blessing or a curse to some people. So I think again, it's like it's if there's nothing that's going to stop you and you're gonna stick through it. But if you don't know, that's not an indication that something's wrong with you or you're doing it wrong, right? There's just a million ways to do life, and everyone's starts off a different way, goes different paths, and that's just something you have to accept and just kind of make the most of it. This leaving the gym thing is really sad and it hurt, but I can only think about the good times I had, the work I put into it, and then now possibilities are endless for whatever I want to go do.
Yeah. At the end, it's all going to be all right. I think that's a cool place to end this thing, man. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for being willing to jump on this thing last minute. We definitely have to do this more often. I really enjoy getting to talk to you. I could talk to you all day.
Hell yeah, man.
Before we close, just let people know where they can find you if they're interested in checking out what you got going on. Anything else you'd like to add, feel free to drop it.
Yeah, no, again, dude, I love talking to you. And I joke about doing this only once a year on early June, but I'm happy to do it way more whenever you need. But yeah, if you want to keep up, it's at crack, CRACK _JOWE, Crack Joe, on Instagram, Twitter,
Best
all that jazz.
Instagram handle on planet Earth.
Well, yeah, I got blessed with a good name to do it with, so I'm lucky there. But nah, man, friggin' love talking to you. Thanks again for having me. And if anyone of your audience has questions or anything, holler.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Good People. If you enjoyed my conversation with Jack as much as I did, please make sure you head on down to the show notes below and follow him on Instagram. If you're interested in checking out the book recommendation by Joseph Campbell, it was titled Power of Mythology. I also have a link to that book in the show notes below as well. If you guys are listening on YouTube, before you head out, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our weekly uploads. And if while you were listening, if you enjoyed, please share this episode with someone you love, perhaps your grandma. We'll see you next time.